Funding for Expedition Florida, the Big Bend Coast, was provided by the Nature Coast Eye Care Institute, providing cataract, glaucoma, and LASIK surgery and diabetic eye care. The Nature Coast Eye Care Institute, a team of professionals pursuing ophthalmic excellence since 1991. And by the Taylor County Tourism Development Council and the communities along the Nature Coast, from the Osceola and the Econfina Rivers to Keaton Beach, Perry, and Steinhatchee, where you can share some real Florida adventures. Additional funding was provided by Steinhatchee Rivergate, an enclave of Florida cracker-style homes and vacation cottages on the banks of the Steinhatchee River, true to the spirit of old Florida. And by Nature Coast Outdoors, providing information for fishermen, boaters, birdwatchers, and other outdoor enthusiasts along Florida's Nature Coast. From Homosassa to Steinhatchee to Apalachicola, all you'll need to know to plan your next outdoor adventure.
What I envision for the future of the Wassissa and the Osceola River basins is that it be protected for future generations to see the wonderful beauty and the abundance of wildlife and the abundance of archaeological and paleontological material that this unique system offers.
The Big Bend Saltwater Paddling Trail really is a slice of old Florida on the natural side.
There is definitely a resource to be tapped here for fly fishing in an environment that would have been the Keys 20 years ago.
Coming out to a wild place in Florida really makes my heart go pitter-patter, and I trust that the same would be true of just about anybody who would come bird watching here. This is a part of Florida where the local people and the state have done a great job of preserving decent-sized chunks of wilderness.
We call our home celestial indolence because in our retirement we feel like that it is absolutely heavenly place to do as little as possible, or you can do as much as possible depending on your mood in the morning.
Florida, in the minds of many people, consists of theme parks and developments and condos and the beach, but that's only a small part of Florida. The real beauty in Florida exists in its natural wild setting, and that's what's left in some of these places like Taylor County, the Wassissa River, and the Osceola River.
I had so much fun growing up on this river. We canoed, we camped, we've been snorkeling and diving this river for 25 years since I was old enough to do that. It's been a place to explore, it's been a place to take people to. It's been the place that was wild, that you could go to and get away from the hordes of people in the rest of Florida.
This area of the Big Bend is especially unique in Florida. It's one of the few areas where you can stand and look over this amazing panorama of salt marsh and not see any human structure. And there's very few places in Florida where this is still possible. Paddling down this creek in the morning sunrise is an amazing experience.
The destination really is the trip itself. I have paddled literally all over the world, and the paddling here is gorgeous. There's tons of places to land, tons of places to paddle, little nooks and crannies of water everywhere. It's just beautiful.
The wildlife is abundant. Osprey, manatee, dolphin. It's everything that you would imagine old Florida would be. It's like stepping back in time.
Paddling the Big Bend Saltwater Trail provides an unparalleled wilderness experience. There's few places today in the country, particularly in Florida, where you're going to see such a remote and pristine, unspoiled area. This trail is all about being well prepared and being self-sufficient and being ready for extreme conditions. Even in the middle of winter, it's possible to have temperatures in the 20s and up to the 70s. So you have to have a wide range of gear and everything you need to provide yourself with food and water. We do have identified places to pick up potable water along the trail, but you do need to bring everything with you because it's limited resupply possibilities out here.
The way to get experience to do a trail this committed is to do shorter trips that are less committed. Trips on rivers, trips that have more ways to get out of harm's way if that were to happen. And you slowly build up, just like you do in any sport. You don't start out at the top. You slowly build and work your way up, honing your skills and your equipment as you go.
The great appeal of Stoltzfus for us was its remoteness and the fact that we are surrounded by unspoiled nature. Here we enjoy wonderful sunrises over the Gulf, and there's nothing quite as satisfying as going out to the flats on a bright morning with the sun coming up and fish splashing all around you. There's a sensation that you get in very few other places that I have enjoyed.
Sometimes you feel like you're in the Amazon, you're so far away from people, and just the serenity of it all, just a beautiful, beautiful oasis. With 8 to 14 miles between each campsite, the Big Bend Saltwater Paddling Trail really is a great place to kick back and just take it all in.
This little corner of the state is well worth preserving as old Florida, and as much in its natural state as we can keep it.
I believe that the Big Bend Trail is a real gift to the state of Florida and to people that enjoy coming out into an unspoiled wilderness area. And I think we all have to work together to do what we can to preserve this wonderful treasure.
Taylor County is such a great place to bird because so much of the county is so wild. We've been out here in this salt marsh for only 20 minutes or a half hour, and we've already seen 30 or 40 species of birds. It's just fantastic. It's this great blend of water birds, marsh birds, forest birds, birds of open country. You can't really pick a bad time of year to visit here to go bird watching. Lots of red-winged blackbirds. We're coming right up on the seaside sparrow clump.
The best thing about the Great Florida Birding Trail is getting out into nature and seeing what wild Florida was like many years ago. You can appreciate the great diversity of habitats and species that we have, like right here in Taylor County. We have excellent sites to watch waterfowl, migrating shorebirds and songbirds. We have nesting ospreys and eagles.
This is not the part that's paved over, no traffic jams. It's pure nature. Listen to all the birds that we're hearing in the background here. And this is to the credit of the people of Florida who preserved places like this.
The Great Florida Birding Trail is a collection of 446 excellent birdwatching sites throughout the state of Florida. This is a program created by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. It started back in 2000. There are 4 sections of the trail: the east, the west, the panhandle, and the south section just opened in January of 2006. The commission created the birding trail because birders create a tremendous economic impact.
Every year in the United States, about $5 billion are spent on bird watching, and about $500 million of that is spent in the state of Florida. Florida has a lot of specialty birds that are either difficult or impossible to find anywhere else in the United States, and that brings a lot of people to Florida, actually all times of year, because some of these birds are easier to find in the summer than they are in the winter, which is what people typically associate with Florida.
Birding is a pastime that's enjoyed by people from all walks of life and all ages, from the very young to the very old.
There are so many ways that you can get into birding, whether you're urban, suburban, rural in your background. Bird feeding is a popular way to do it. I don't know of any place in the country that doesn't have some sort of Audubon Society or nature group where you can do some bird watching. Listen to all these nighthawks flying over here. If you're outside here in Taylor County and you hear that bird flying over, and if you don't know it's a nighthawk, it's going to pique your curiosity, and you're going to want to maybe get a bird field guide or ask somebody, what are these birds that have been flying around for the last hour? Just fascinating. Only about an hour from where we are here in Taylor County is the Florida Museum of Natural History on the campus of the University of Florida. We're the largest natural history museum in the southeastern U.S., and we have great exhibits and other public programs about the natural history of Florida, including a lot about birds. I've gone bird watching all around the world, all the continents and these exotic tropical places, but Florida still, which is where I work, still comes back to me because in a short drive from where I live, I can be out in a place like this. It's loaded with birds, no background human noises. It's just wonderful. You can relax, really enjoy yourself, maybe learn a little something. It's really nice.
The early morning light, that's just one of my favorite times of day. The sun's beginning to come up, the water's slick calm, fish are sticking their heads up here and there. You see the marsh grass and the tree lines reflecting in the water. It's just a very special time of the day. I've got a taste of a natural environment once again. This place is still a very pristine environment, crystal clear water, wonderful fishing, sight fishing, shallow water everywhere for the type of fishing that I love to do. We're beginning to approach a spot where I've caught quite a few big redfish, and what we're looking for as we approach the spot is the concentration of mullet. The mullet, we're on the incoming tide and the mullet are moving in.
We fly fish, and when we discovered that we had these extensive flats and shallow rivers and creeks in great abundance all around Stoltzfus, we decided that this was the place that we wanted to be.
Catch and release fishing has been my way of fishing since as far back as I can remember. I've always felt like fishing was certainly an experience that went way beyond table fare, food. All right, we've got a nice, large, fly-hooked redfish.
Taylor County's habitat makes it a great place to fly fish because it's shallow. It's exceptionally rocky. It's got oyster bars. It's got all the needed things that redfish and big sea trout like to have to feed.
The water is so clear. It is just crystal clear up here. Even the salt water is just so clear, and I think that's conducive to schooling fish such as redfish feeding in the shallow waters around here.
Taylor County is probably the best place to fish in the state of Florida. It's clean, it's uncrowded, and it's just a fabulous destination, particularly for fly fishermen.
We practice catch and release sport fishing up here. We're going to turn this fella loose to swim another day and hopefully create some more of his kind. Thank you, big guy. That was a lot of fun.
The first settlers who came to North Florida found and made a sense of place for themselves. It's very important to have a sense of place. If you lose your sense of place, you lose your sense of identity. They learned to live with nature. They had to. Nature was all around them. They had to rely on nature for everything, and they were very respectful of nature. There was a closeness of family and community. There was a slow pace. They didn't have to hustle. It took them a long time to do things, but there was no pressure, no commuting back and forth to work. It was done all here. They had the time in the evenings, especially in the wintertime, to enjoy themselves, to sit around as a family. In the summertime, everybody had a job. They all worked and pulled together. This house is a dog trot house, and essentially what that means is that there are two pens, one on each side, with an open area between. The center hallway in a house like this is called the dog trot because, generally speaking, who was out there all the time? The dog. The dog actually lived out there. All the neighbors got together. They got together for a number of activities: constructing buildings, sugaring time, harvest time, driving cattle, because they were very interdependent. They knew that they could rely on each other because they had to rely on each other. We don't have that anymore.
If I had the ability to get into a time capsule and go back some 14,000 years, it would be an amazing opportunity for me to see what life might have been like for the people that lived here. There were immense animals that lived here. There were immense dangers, and they had the ability to overcome these just using the stone and bone tools they could construct.
To the best of our knowledge, the very first Floridians came to the Taylor County area 14,425 years ago, and they were the first Floridians, and from this area they moved out into other parts of the peninsula of Florida at different times.
What comes to mind when I think of Paleo-Indians, I think of people who were superb at using the resources they had in the natural world around them. They lived among these giant megafaunal animals that lived here in the Pleistocene. They hunted them. They had to deal with ferocious predators, no doubt. So they must have had a tremendously interesting life. I wish I could have been here for that time.
We discovered artifacts in the Wassissa just simply by getting in the water and snorkeling and scuba diving and observing the bottom and looking for the things that occurred in the bottom and along the bottom.
Wow, is that a swanee? God, Harley, look at that. It was a swanee point.
There's rocky rubble, there's trees, there's bark. There are all kinds of things that litter the bottom. But your eye, after a while, will pick out those things that are symmetric and man-made, and those are the things that we were ultimately looking for. The bone material, which is fossil material, and the artifacts. And once you look for a while, you finally realize what these things are, and we discovered them here in the Wassissa.
We have shown it to be an intact archaeological site containing Swanee Age Paleo-Indian artifacts in association with Pleistocene megafaunal animals. And to my knowledge, that is the first time that has been done in the southeastern United States. This is a Swanee projectile point, and you can see the base of it is concave, and there are two auricles or ears coming off the base. There's also a slight basal constriction, and the overall shape of the point is lanceolate. Those characters that I just mentioned define this as being a Swanee point or a Paleo-Indian point or a point that it has been made and manufactured during the Pleistocene. We need to pin down exactly how old the site is. We know that it's Paleo-Indian because of its being in association with Pleistocene megafauna that are known to have gone extinct at the end of the Pleistocene. So we just need to know exactly how old it is now, and that's where research is headed with the Ryan Harley site currently.
These rivers are time capsules, and what we do when we go and look for these things is descend into a time capsule and pick up pieces of the past, hopefully to allow us to assemble those as some sort of a puzzle to help guide us to understand what it was in the past that these people were doing and maybe show some sort of link to the future. Most of the water that you see flowing in this river is supplied from an underground source, which is our aquifer system. That aquifer system is the same aquifer system that holds the water that 90% of Floridians drink.
The Woodville Karst Plan project is principally involved as a facilitator for research to explore, map, document caves, and then to assist researchers in other forms of documentation. Things as simple, for example, as gathering water samples, more complicated bringing in flow meters, locating surface points where we can drill connection wells in and that way connect up to real-time instruments. When we map the cave systems, we normally use a relatively unsophisticated method, which means that the sort of general trend of the cave and the rough size of the cave are the most important features. You can get more accurate kinds of data associated with the cave, for example, by using sonar imaging devices. But for most of the research, sort of simple is better. It's easier to use, it's quicker, and we can map and document a significantly greater part of the cave.
We believe that the same type of processes are active in other similar types of river basins. For instance, the St. Marks River immediately to the east, and then after that the Wassissa, and then after that the Osceola. Wakulla Spring is fed by a network of caves that are largest near the spring and grow upward into the basin and get smaller as they go north. So just like a river, they collect water and convey it to the spring.
For me, cave diving really has always been this sort of amalgamation of the things that I love most. You get to come to some of the most remarkable places in the world, and it's just impossible not to appreciate your surroundings. But then it's remarkable that if you go down in the water, you get the next layer of appreciation, and then as you go into the cave, it sort of unlocks the mystery of the area.
One of the primary objectives of what we're trying to do here is to create a very detailed understanding of how growth and development pressures are impacting water resources. Some places are being impacted more than others right now, but we know that over time those same pressures are probably going to be key influences on or threats to water quality in all of our river basins in Florida.
Every living thing that lives in the Wassissa River requires crystal clear, high quality Floridan aquifer groundwater to run this engine.
It's imperative that the things we do on the surface of the land do not impact that water quality.
Archaeology and the archaeological resource is not like most resources. Most resources are renewable. You cut down the tree, you can plant another tree and it will grow back. You take out one archaeological site, you take it out forever, it doesn't grow back.
What are we going to leave posterity? What are we going to leave future plants and animals and future humans to enjoy? What are we if our only legacy is concrete and pavement and skyscrapers and a lack of a natural environment?
We need to protect this unique river system, the Wassissa and Osceola, for the people of the future because it contains so many unique things. Not only does it contain natural resources, but it also contains paleontological and archaeological remains that are pertinent to all of the people of the world, as a matter of fact. And this is a national treasure. It must be protected for the future.
The camaraderie among bluegrass pickers is probably unique to the music. You don't see that in any other form of music. You can get together in a parking lot, behind a tent, under the trees, and people of all ages from 6 to 60 can gather and play because the songs are all familiar to each other and the skill levels are various, but it's something that brings people together.
The music is just so pure. There's usually no electronics. It's all acoustic. You can play it here on this front porch, or you can play it up on the stage. You're going to get the same music anywhere. You can just sit there and play and just have a great time.
Funding for Expedition Florida, the Big Bend Coast, was provided by the Nature Coast Eye Care Institute, providing cataract, glaucoma, and LASIK surgery and diabetic eye care. The Nature Coast Eye Care Institute, a team of professionals pursuing ophthalmic excellence since 1991. And by the Taylor County Tourism Development Council and the communities along the Nature Coast, from the Osceola and the Econfina Rivers to Keaton Beach, Perry, and Steinhatchee, where you can share some real Florida adventures. Additional funding was provided by Steinhatchee Rivergate, an enclave of Florida cracker-style homes and vacation cottages on the banks of the Steinhatchee River, true to the spirit of old Florida. And by Nature Coast Outdoors, providing information for fishermen, boaters, birdwatchers, and other outdoor enthusiasts along Florida's Nature Coast. From Homosassa to Steinhatchee to Apalachicola, all you'll need to know to plan your next outdoor adventure.